Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. This is Aislin, and tonight we're going to talk about the Major Arcana of the Tarot. We are not going to discuss individual cards tonight. We will start doing that in the next video. I will make one video per card. Yes, that means I'm going to have 78 individual videos discussing each card, but that's easier to find the particular card you're looking for when you're scrolling through the videos. But for tonight, we're just going to tell the story of the Major Arcana. It is a story, and it is a journey. You will notice down in this corner, we again have a non-traditional deck. Here's an example, so you will see occasionally there's a card that isn't in the other decks. In this case, it's the Tree of Life. Everything else starts with the Fool. This deck, the Fairy Wicca Tarot, starts with the Tree of Life. We're going to remove that card. We may eventually come back and discuss non-traditional decks in depth, but for now we're going to focus on the Rider-Waite Tarot. It's the most common and it has the most wide-reaching symbolism. Also, most decks will follow its basic themes. Even this deck, a non-traditional deck, has an awful lot in common. You have your knapsack, you have a path, whereas these ones have cliffs. You have your little companions, these ones have dogs. Either way, there's an awful lot in common. But we're focusing on these. I will flip through these ones and talk about them as we go. The 22 cards which make up the Major Arcana of the Tarot are really a series of images which portray the many different stages of a significant journey. This journey is the life journey that everyone must undertake and is often called the Fool's Journey. The Fool is the traveler of the Tarot. Over here, the Fool is called the Seeker. Same idea, slightly different imagery. But the Fool takes the risk of jumping into the unknown and begins his journey through the Major Arcana. This takes a lot of courage. The Fool first encounters the Magician. Flip all of these, get these all out of the way. You will see again we have some very similar themes happening here. We have your tables with your tools, your pentacles, your cups and such. I will just remove the Seeker as well. You can see this one is called the Druid, but we still have a lot of those same symbols. The athame raised to the sky, for example, the pentacle, it's all here. So, slightly different card, very similar symbolism. The Fool first encounters the Magician, and he learns that he has hidden potential and abilities which have not yet manifested. This is the Fool's first lesson. He is not all that he seems. After the Fool, we have the High Priestess. In the non-traditional deck, this card is still called the High Priestess. Again, notice the similar symbolism. The High Priestess shows the Fool how to begin the exploration of his inner powers. He enters the underworld, full of confusion, but knows that he must traverse this to find the secret of his real purpose and the pattern of his destiny. Then we have the Empress. Here we are calling her the Mother Goddess. So this one does vary a little bit, but not a lot. Again, similar imagery. So the Empress, whom the Fool encounters next, teaches him that he is also a physical creature in addition to being a spiritual one. He has a soul, and that soul must be nourished. Now here we reveal the Emperor. Here we're calling him the Father God. The Emperor teaches the Fool to take responsibility. It is through the Emperor that the Fool discovers his own ethical principles. Here we come to the Hierophant. I take too many cards there. Here it is called the Guide. So again, similar. When the Fool encounters the Hierophant, he begins his spiritual and philosophical quest. The Fool must turn to tradition to build a foundation for future learning. Now we're going to encounter the Lovers, here called the Beloved. The Lovers is an important step for the Fool. It is here where he learns to communicate his feelings and desires. He also begins to understand that he must consider carefully the implications of his choices. We move a little further down the path, and we encounter the Chariot, also called the Chariot here in our non-traditional deck example. The Chariot signifies the Fool's decision to continue his journey. It also marks his acceptance of his own contradictions. Now we reveal the Strength card. You will notice there is a little bit of difference in some of the orders of these cards. So this card is a Justice card, but if we flip a little bit further, Strength. Alright, so some decks flip the Justice and the Strength cards. I am going to leave the cards in the order they're already in. So we have a Strength here, and a Justice here, and here. We're just going to leave that the way it is. I didn't bother flipping the order of these cards just because I did want you to see that some cards have a different order. If your cards have a different order, that is all right. The journey that the Fool goes on, you could easily swap Strength for Justice as long as both do happen at some point. And as for the meanings, the position in the journey doesn't change the meaning of the cards. Alright, so it is okay that some of these cards have a slightly different order. Your deck may have a slightly different order than the traditional Rider-Waite deck. That's alright. The card of Strength, again sticking with Rider-Waite specifically, these two do say Justice. The card of Strength teaches just what it implies. The Fool also learns about his own ego and how to temper it with rationality. And then we're going to flip, and you will notice every single deck now goes to the Hermit. So we are not off track, it's just those two cards do get flipped. The Hermit is called the Holy Man here. Again, same imagery. The Hermit arrives and shows the Fool how to guide and help others. The Hermit also redirects the Fool back onto a spiritual path, gently but firmly. And we're just going to move on to the Wheel of Fortune. This is called the Sun Wheel. The Fool learns with the coming of the Wheel of Fortune that not all things can be controlled. This is disturbing to him, and the Fool begins to waver once again on his path. Alright, now we come to Justice. Again, these two decks, we come to Strength, or Strength of Will in this case. So, Justice, Justice, Strength, Strength. Arriving at the pure Temple of Justice, the Fool must learn to embrace all that she embodies. He learns that balance is key, and that without it, he will fall into darkness. Okay, so we're going to change things up as we encounter the Hanged Man, or the Hangman here. It is the Hanged Man in almost all cards. You're going to notice again that this card is slightly different. So again, your order might be a little different depending on what you've got. Also, I'm missing a card out of that deck. So if your order's a little bit different, don't worry about it too much. Don't worry about this right now because I am missing a card out of that deck. It's not missing. It's just busy being on my altar. I don't take it off there very often. So as the Fool drifts, absorbing all that he has learned, he encounters the Hanged Man, or the Hangman. The Hanged Man shows the Fool through pain and suffering a way back to his spiritual path. It is made clear to the fool that he must change his view of the world if he is to proceed. What better way to change your view of the world than encountering death? Here, it is the Banshee Chrome. That's okay. Still a symbol of death. When death arrives, the fool is forced to adapt and change to what he did not see coming. This change is painful and disruptive, but the fool learns to deal with it and finally realizes that not all change is bad. Now, we're going to move on to Temperance, or the Holy Waters. You will notice, even though this is not called Temperance, water is a main theme on this particular card. By the time the fool arrives at Temperance, he really is a changed man, and this card shows him how to manipulate the external circumstances so that he can create his own situation. He learns how to combine what he thought were two opposing forces so that they form a unified whole. This card freaks people out sometimes. It is the Devil. It is not a terrible card. It's just another card. Here it's called the Old One. But it's just another card in the deck, another step in the journey. The fool is forced to face his inner demons when he encounters the Devil. He must confront everything he hates most about himself: selfishness, greed, anger, and hatred. His reaction to this is to hide his destructive habits, but this makes his inner demons come into manifestation all the more quickly. And that brings us to the Tower. Here it's called the Round Tower. Same thing. The Tower brings catastrophe as the fool realizes that his life is in tatters and he must try to pick up the pieces. But all is not lost as the fool, while picking up the pieces, gets a good long look at the reality of life and knows how to rebuild his tower properly. Now we move on to the Star. Again, called the Star here as well. In the Star card, the fool is given hope. He is replenished, refreshed, and given a sign telling him which way to go. He is ready to face life, wiser and more open to its teachings. But then we arrive at the Moon. And the Moon can represent doubt. This is Old Witch Moon Hill. Again, it's very similar. The Moon brings self-doubt, and the fool finds himself losing sight of his guiding light. It is some time before he realizes that his guiding light has never been anywhere but inside him, and he listens to his heart and intuition and finds his way again. When he finds his way, he steps in to the Sun, or the Sun Child in this case. When the fool comes to the Sun, he has nearly finished his journey and he has a sense of completion. It doesn't matter to him that some things in life are difficult and challenging. Learning from them is all that matters. And he becomes ready and mature enough to face judgment. You will notice slightly different spelling. Judgment here is spelled with an extra E. It is not here. That's simply a difference between English and American spelling. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. At Judgment, the fool reaches the final stage of his spiritual search and is reborn as the person he has been trying to create throughout his journey. He integrates all the lessons he has learned into one whole world view, and thus attains the realization that he has been searching for all this time. And as his understanding widens, he encounters the world for the first time, or the Weaver Goddess in this case. The coming of the world allows the fool to celebrate. His celebration isn't just about what he has won. It is also about the fact that once he moves beyond the celebration, he gets to start all over again. He becomes the fool once more. So this card sets us back, and he starts all over again as the fool. The fool's journey is regarded as a metaphor for life and is a powerful symbol to many people throughout the world. However, the Major Arcana alone can give a distorted view of the truth. It is designed to be read in a spread in conjunction with the Minor Arcana, and you should use both if you're looking for a complete message. So I am a big proponent of making sure you're using both the Major and Minor Arcana in your readings. Let's just get these back on here. I like things neat and tidy. But if you do prefer just to use the Major Arcana, tread carefully, because the Major Arcana isn't nuanced enough for most readings. But that is all for tonight. We will come back and discuss the Fool in the next video. We will discuss its symbolism and what it means in a reading. Later on, we will talk about spreads, but that is many, many videos down the line, as we're about to dedicate one video per card for both the Major and Minor Arcana. Until next time, blessed be.